Vice President Kamala Harris finally sat down for her first solo interview as the Democratic nominee for president. 54 days after she jumped into the race and took her boss's spot atop the ticket. The Harris-Walz ticket now has done a combined 10 interviews. Trump-Vance, in that same period of time, 52. Some debate. Deja vu? Harris served up some word salad when asked about the question that matters most to voters. Let's watch.
When we talk about bringing down prices and making life more affordable for people, what are one or two specific things you have in mind for that?
Well, I'll start with this. I grew up a middle-class kid. I grew up in a neighborhood of folks who were very proud of their lawn. We have ambitions and aspirations and dreams, but not everyone necessarily has access to the resources that can help them fuel those dreams and ambitions. It's about investing in areas that really need a lot of work and maybe focusing on, again, the aspirations and the dreams. My focus is very much in what we need to do over the next 10, 20 years to catch up to the 21st century around, again, capacity, but also challenges.
If there's one thing that you wish Americans knew about who Kamala Harris is that you don't think they know yet, what would that be?
I love my family. One of my favorite things that I lately have not been able to do is Sunday family dinner. I love to cook. I have incredible friends.
Okay, so I mentioned that there was some debate over how she answered the question. In particular, how would you make things better for people in this country right now? The debate is whether or not you understood it. I guess if you want to vote for her, maybe you did. If you don't, maybe you didn't. Or maybe you just fall into the vat of people who just didn't get it, period, no matter how they vote. Either way, well, you saw it. Republican Senator Marco Rubio wants Kamala Harris to answer this particular question.
You've been in a position, you're not some outsider running for office. You're as inside as you can be. Kamala Harris is as insider as you can get as vice president. Why haven't you done these things already? And I think a lot of voters picked up on that. There's a big difference between impressing the media class and the punditry and impressing voters. Two very different universes. And I think what's going to decide this election is not the pundits, it's the voters.
And some of those voters are already voting in early voting states. We'll get into more of that at a different time. But for now, we've watched Kamala Harris flip-flop on many of her past far-left positions. And one that we always mentioned because it was just so blatant when she said she wanted to ban fracking. Like there was no misunderstanding around what she said. Well, now it's, her team says on her behalf, no, she doesn't. Another example, doing away with private health insurance. Not a lot of gray area on what she said before, but now her team says she doesn't really want to do that. No funding for the border wall. She lived in California where there's a strong structure that goes all the way into the ocean south of San Diego. I'd never heard her fight against the wall back then when she was, one of the citizens being advantaged by having a wall. Border wall funding, nope, not going to do that. Secretary Pete Buttigieg is running defense for Kamala Harris. Let's watch.
Look, you develop your policies based on what you see happening in the world around you and what you're able to accomplish in Washington. You take the example of immigration. We just talked through what's changed over the last 5 years. We could say the same thing on climate. Every election is about the future and not the past.
Well, if only he'd had a successful presidential run, you might listen to what he's saying there to defend her. Critics say the media is not holding Harris accountable either. A new column argues Kamala's softball ABC sit-down shows networks' bias and how she has nothing to say. And it adds, in an 11-minute sit-down interview with a Pennsylvania ABC affiliate that has drawn more than 5 million views on X, the vice president lapsed into recycled sound bites and snippets from past speeches. Reporter Brian Taff asked direct questions about policies and never got direct answers. Power panel now, Kayleigh McGee-White, Steamboat Institute Fellow, and David Carlucci, former Democratic state senator from New York. Kayleigh, I'm going to come to you first on what it is that we're seeing from Kamala Harris right now. And by the way, the debate did about what it always does for people with debates, impact zero. flat.
Right. And I think that there was a time when voters were willing to give Kamala Harris the benefit of the doubt on this basement strategy. She was new on the campaign trail. She was still developing a policy platform. But Harris, we are so far past that point where now this is being seen for what it is, deliberate evasion. And that tells voters two things. And I say this as a voter from a swing state, from Michigan, who's talked to a lot of people about this. It tells them two things. First, that like Biden, Harris would enter office as a shell of a president, as a figurehead for someone else to use as they see fit. And it tells them that, like Biden, Harris is trying to run as a centrist candidate right now, but if she were elected and if she were to take the White House, she would govern as a far-left progressive. So her refusal to provide specifics is actually hurting her campaign at this point.
David, Harris is widely seen as the debate winner. I mentioned that. It hasn't moved the needle much at all for voters. She gained only 1 point compared with pre-debate polling, and she now is at 51% to, well, you see it there on the screen there. And there was also a lot of hype over Taylor Swift's endorsement of the VP. Only 6% said it made a difference in their vote. 81% said it didn't matter at all. A new headline reads, Harris flatlines in post-debate polling despite claims of victory. An excerpt reads, Harris has stayed safely behind the protective film of scripted speeches, tightly controlled campaign trail stops, and glossy social media videos in the roughly 6 weeks since becoming the nominee. That is leaving voters with a little sense of Harris's platform or personality. For an incumbent from a deeply unpopular administration, Kamala Harris risks allowing voters to fill in the blanks with their skepticism of her. Former RNC chairman and MSNBC analyst Michael Steele with his shade at Trump supporters.
This man is unserious.
Yes.
So the fact that he's running close in this race, to me, is offensive, because it says a lot about us as Americans if you believe this guy.
I don't know what he's trying to say there about American voters that he thinks would help Kamala Harris, but the bottom line is none of this is really helping her move. She had a big honeymoon period. David, I've even heard you say, okay, now it's time for the hard work.
Well, I mean, she has had one successful event after the other. She's got momentum at her back, and that's what we want to see if it's your candidate. And yes, you pointed to the debate not moving the needle much, but in this election where we know it is just so close that moving the needle just a fraction of a percent is important. Look back to the Biden-Trump debate. We saw that didn't move the needle much in terms of polling. It eventually let Biden exit the race because of the way he performed, but it didn't move the polls much.
But if it did move the polls much, why did your side of the aisle kick him out, or at least he capitulated to something that looks like that?
Well, I think there's a whole bunch of reasons for that, right? We believe in President Biden and are excited about him, but he just didn't have the energy to take that to Donald Trump. And we saw that with Kamala Harris. She did really well in that debate. And there's a lot of talk about not understanding Kamala Harris's platform, her policies, where she stands. Then you should push her for another debate. I don't understand why Donald Trump...
Why can't we push her and get her to sit down with somebody other than ABC News? ABC News, from what I experienced behind the curtain, was doing some things that really need to be questioned now. ABC News at NABJ, then ABC News at the debate. And now ABC News affiliate is the one place where she sits down. There's a whole host of other people she could take questions from. Real quick, I got to go.
So take that into consideration, have rules established, but have these candidates debate. There's a lot of talk about
she needs to hold
Kamala
a news
Harris
conference, too. I'm going to give the last
questions.
word quickly to Kaylee.
Well, I'll just say it's ironic to hear David even defend Biden as not having enough energy, because you were on air 2 days before Joe Biden dropped out, insisting that Joe Biden was about to have a comeback moment. So forgive me if I take your political analysis here with a massive mountain of salt.
All right. Good to see you both. We got to run.
Debate, and we should have these debates go forward.
She should have interviews and news conferences that are not scripted.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.